Welcome back on the AM show. At this juncture, I serve you my blunt thoughts for this morning. I am very sad this morning as I talk about our murky state of affairs, Ghana being destroyed day by day. Our murky state of affairs, Ghana being destroyed day by day. Ghana 4, before I give vent, I want you to just watch this video.
Odanjo Gifty is a primary 5 pupil. To get access to a desk, she comes to school very early in the morning. The furniture situation here is based on a first-come, first-served basis, but she is not happy losing hours of sleep because of furniture. Gifty found a way to avoid lying on the floor to write, but she's not happy that her colleagues lie on their bellies to write.
Government blood of Gananga Tite. The gun can enter a Debayadan school cacatang. Ali lack of one young kanga, Ipum Bimena, never couldn't do the Ruchinawa. Bococam cacatang. Uniform back by uniform, but the gun can enter.
At this point, tears cloud her eyes, and shortly after, all emotion she had bottled up finally let loose.
Ali Mabakasalakana, marked by uniform, my uniform Bakaka. Unkataka, what I do to cock my coat son in Ali to like being cooked, what I batter.
She had endured enough of the humiliation.
She had indeed endured enough of the humiliation. This is Ghana in 2023. What you just saw. Ghana in 2023. I think this should be a stark reminder to our misleaders that Ghanaians are much more than just votes to be counted. We are human beings. We are human, for crying out loud. 2 grandchildren of a pensioner bondholder joined her just yesterday to picket. Why? They are not in school and they cannot go there because their grandmother cannot pay their fees. She's a pensioner bondholder. The state owes her money. They can't pay the set sum of money. And for that reason, these 2 children joined her at the Ministry of Finance yesterday to picket. Why should it get to this point, Ghana 4, where children are picketing? What was interesting when our reporter asked the children, so whom did they feel was responsible for the situation? They mentioned the name of the president. But come with me. I am chronologically following a strand of events that show clearly that we do not have the most vulnerable children in this country at heart. We've seen those children in Bimbela who do not have any furniture in their school building. They're on the floor. And that is how they study. Are these our future leaders? Do we even think of them as such? But come here with me. There's a lot more to mull over as we look at the different strands of why we are where we are. Look at our education, drowning school pupils. You would have thought that on the back of this, on January the 24th, in Wayokope, 20 pupils were involved in that canoe incident. The number of deaths we recorded were 8. Their crime, they went to school and were coming back. Now, May the 10th, another incident, Fana Botiano. 12 were involved. This time, the death toll, as of now, is 9. Again, what crime did these children commit? They have no school. Government hasn't thought about that. Beyond not having a school, there's no bridge to a neighboring island, so that even if they have to go endanger their lives, there would be a structure that would, take care of the situation. No school, no bridge. These canoes obviously are not retrofitted or fit for purpose. No life jackets. And this is what has happened. Dead. Gone. How do we account for these young ones? In fact, in this incident, the first one this year, A structure was promised. It hasn't been built. And after all the lamentations by the sector minister, Dr. Educhum, and his fancy utterances about, everything that happened, I must confess, there was palpable sadness that it showed. But it has happened again, this time with a higher death toll. How can we have a system like this? So, at the numbers, 17 of our young ones, the least among them a year and a half, has lost his life. It's a crying shame. Let's go to the next slide. Now, in terms of the drowning school pupils, according to the National Disaster Management Organization, the deceased were among 20 pupils who were in the boat traveling from Atikagome to Wayokope, where their school is actually located. On to the next slide. In the latest incident, 9 children at Fana, an island community in the East municipality, have drowned. And the pupils are said to have drowned late afternoon on Wednesday while returning from school. Let's go to the next slide. Now, moving from education and everything that is happening, you also look at our financial sector and everything that is happening here. Banks have recorded gargantuan losses that I cannot fathom how we are going to deal with this situation. But come with me to the board. 15 out of 21 banks registered losses in 2022. 15 of them on the back of the DDEP, the Domestic Debt Exchange Program. Now, the top 5 banks recorded profits. That is their record in terms of profit before tax, the PBT losses in 2022. We're looking at billions of Ghana cedis. Look at Zenith, negative 0.55. And we know that the GCB Bank, for example, lost over $50 million, over 500 million Ghana cedis. Same reflects for all of these banks. Zenith, APSA, negative 0.56, GCB, negative 0.71, negative 1.08 for Cowbank, and the CBG, negative 2. We're talking about hundreds of millions all the way to billions of cedis that have been lost on the back of the DDEP. Now, we want $1.5 billion to be able to shore up these banks. We're claiming we're going to come up with $500 million, where we do not know yet. Hopefully, we don't try printing money again, because that will just push the situation even further down the drain. Let's go to the next slide. Now, in terms of our Financial Stability Fund, which is what government is planning on using to stabilize the banking sector, the GFSF was established with a target size of 15 billion Ghana cedis. That's the equivalent of about $1.5 billion to be provided by the government of Ghana and its development partners. The fund is to provide liquidity to financial institutions that participate fully or participated fully in the debt exchange. Let's go to the next slide. Now, the World Bank has committed $250 million to the fund. That leaves a gap of $750 million. The amount will be paid by the third quarter. And talks are underway for donor partners such as the African Development Bank for further resources into the fund. Next slide. And on that same beat, we have economist at Louisiana Economic Development, Dr. Saad Idrisu, saying, quote, "We are heading into a banking crisis. Believe it or not, we're currently suffering. If government is not able to get the $1.5 billion stability fund by July the 23rd, that is July 2023, some banks will start collapsing." When this was said the first time, people said, oh, this won't happen. It's staring us in the face now on the back of the DDEP. You have pensioner bondholders, like I said, a grandmother with her grandchildren at the Ministry of Finance picketing their money. They just want their coupons, principal, and they can't get it. Now, here we are with our banking system, which we've spent decades building, propping it up to where it is now. This is where we are now. We just pray that we can get the requisite funds so that our banking sector doesn't collapse, because if it does, we can't even fathom the consequences. Let's go to the next slide. But moving away from education and the economy now, let's focus on Galamsey. The impact of this has become so bad that now, believe it or not, In our local parlance, we say that in Suobia Dumja, and yes, any water can, quench fire. But how far-reaching the tentacles of Galamsey are can be seen from this. Now, the Western Regional Fire Commander, Frederick Ohiming, had this to say recently. He says, quote, "In the Western region, we have the Pra and Cobra and Tano rivers and other tributaries that make it easy for us to source water to save situations. But the problem now is that Galamsey is making it impossible for us." Let's go to the next slide. Now, if you look at what he says, raw water collection points are heavily silted and turbid owing to illegal mining activities. Again, low pressure and water service lines to hydrants is threatening fire service operations. And the fire service remains the most impacted institution due to the unending illegal mining activities. So now even sourcing the water, and even when they get the water, turbidity levels and silt make it impossible for them to do their work. And we'll turn around and blame the fire service. We should be blaming those who are engaging in illegal mining, and we should be blaming those at the helm of affairs, those in government who are failing to deal with the situation. We're talking about lithium here, and we're going to be more responsible. When have we ever shown responsibility? Over the last 6 years, 7 years. Tell me, how responsible have we been in conserving our environment, in mining, and ensuring value for money? When? Next slide. Now, in terms of the consequences of Galamsey, which we are not taking full stock of, some of what I'm going to say here will shock you. Because guess what? Professor Paul Poku Sampene Osei, he's an associate professor, Department of Pathology, KNUST, and consultant pathology at the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital. This is what he's been sharing in recent times on Love in the Morning at our sister station, Love 99.5 FM. Some common metals used in the extraction of gold, like we all know, include mercury, cyanide, and lead, which can be inhaled. Some people don't know that. It can be inhaled and ingested into the bloodstream of the miners and residents of mining communities. Then from there, children born in areas prone to illegal mining suffer cognitive impairment. We're destroying them right from birth. Cognitive impairment and other deformities due to a high use of heavy metals in gold extraction by Galamsey operators. Now, mind you, these same men and women who are engaging in the Galamsey are the same ones who will father and mother these children and pass on the damage to them. After all, your seed or whatever is a part of you. Next slide. Now, children and infants can absorb. Here's where it gets even more dangerous. For adults, it's less. But for children and infants, they can absorb up to 50% of these heavy metals when they inhale these substances or eat food contaminated by these heavy metals. Adults have the capacity to absorb just between 15 to 20% of the metals, but even this is extremely dangerous. Talk of this, 50%, and they are children, infants. There are instances in some jurisdictions where babies are born with their legs forming around the chest, neck, and stomach, all on the back of illegal mining. All on the back of that. We're destroying our children. We're not giving them good schools. Even when there are schools, they are too far away. They have to do what some of these children did, and they lose their lives. We have grandchildren who are petitioning because their grandmother can't pay their fees, because their funds are locked up with the state. It gets even worse. We're killing them directly and indirectly through Galamsey. Next slide. He also says, in Ghana, we have babies being born with one eye, without genitalia, and some mothers die with their babies. Just take a moment to contemplate that. One eye. So they are losing some of their organs, some of their limbs. Some without genitalia. No male reproductive organ, no female reproductive organ. How are they even going to do something as simple as excrete when it comes to urine, pass urine? How? And some mothers die with their babies, all on account of the menace we're facing. The placenta of a pregnant woman has a high affinity for lead, for example. So if such a woman lives in a Galamsey area, her baby will certainly, underline that, certainly have deformities when born. And the children also suffer kidney and hypertension-related conditions. This is where we are, Ghana for. Money, hey, Galamsey, Bobo. When does it end? The people in these communities deserve far better. They are part of us too. Aren't they Ghanaian? Yes, they are. But this is what we've left them to become. If they are not dying, we're killing them slowly with illegal mining. Mr. President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, there was actually this kiddie show, Preschool Sharks, I saw, and they asked the question, who is the president of Ghana? And the child said, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Make your mark, Mr. President, because the time is no other time than now. In fact, sometimes it boggles my mind. All these things we're talking about, schools, sometimes the V8s we drive, and I can't even fathom why we do these things. How much does one V8 cost? Some upwards of $600,000. Some a little less, depending on the fittings, depending on whether it's armored and all of that. We have all of our ministers and stuff riding in these and being fueled. One can cater for so many schools, yet we have all of these communities wallowing in poverty and dying. Mr. President, when you travel, your seat alone, your chair, also occupies a V8. And it's carted around the country and fueled. To what end? The people you go and beg, Misremo, Muma Esika. Do you see that in their country? Not even the monarchs do that. Not even the monarchs do that. I've not seen that from King Charles III. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've not seen that. Not even monarchs are doing that, but you, Mr. President, you carry your chair around. To what end? Maybe I should refer you to Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 14. All is vanity. In the end, if you leave your people after 8 years and they look at you and say you are a failure, how would that make you feel? Or maybe, Mr. President, you don't even care. But if you don't, today, on the back of all these that I have put up, from Galamsey to education to our economy, it should be a jolt for you and make you start caring. If you don't, because Ghanaians are suffering. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. These are my blunt thoughts shared with you this morning, raw, hot, and edited, undiluted. God richly bless Ghana and make her great and strong.